Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Bells Must Ring podcast. I am your host, Andrew Rice. No Arnav Sarkar today. He is, as they say, physically unable to perform due to illness. So, going to be rocking a solo show for today. Going to quickly get through some of the recent Rutgers news. Just going to barrel our way through it. Starting off with men's basketball closes out the non-conference slate with an unconvincing win over Delaware State. Despite getting the win, Rutgers time and time again looked very sloppy. Delaware State's a bottom 10 team in the country, according to Ken Palm. They only beat them by 15 points. The Scarlet Knights only hit on 29.6% of their field goals and 25.9% from three. And again, keep in mind that this is all against a bottom 10 team in the country, according to Ken Palm. So all these stats, all this inefficiency it's borderline inexcusable against a team of that caliber, and it really terrifies me what's going to happen to this team when Big Ten play comes around. But on the contrary, Delaware State actually hit 33% of their field goals and 33.4% from three, and committed two less turnovers than Rutgers did. So again, in certain areas, they were getting outplayed by a team that has been an absolute disaster this season, has lost to a Division II team. And I think we all understand that this was not a high major team at all, maybe a halfway decent mid-major team, but to be losing to a team to be struggling against a team, that lost to a Division II school, that's on a whole other level of, oh boy, we're in for a long winter. It's just, there's really nothing to take away from that. You're getting outshot out of being less efficient rather than a school that has lost to a Division II team. It's like, I hate to keep hammering home the same points, but it really did not look good at all. There are some positive notes. Three areas where Rutgers really excelled in the game were drawing penalties, free throw shooting, and rebounds. The Knights were able to get to the line 29 times. They hit on 24 of those. They had 82.8 free throw shooting. They grabbed 24 more rebounds than the Hornets, 14 more on the offensive glass. Again, all that's well and good, but if it doesn't, you're not going to be able to do that in the Big Ten. And that's just the flat bottom line of it. The defenses in the Big Ten are a lot more disciplined. They're a lot better coached. They've been doing, a lot of the players in the Big Ten have been doing this for a while at other schools, a lot more experienced. So again, it's not something that you're really going to be able to get away with. And on top of all of that, our leading scorer for this game was Tariq Francis, who, again, he's been doing superhero type stuff for Rutgers recently, but he's drastically undersized and not what we're looking for in a Big Ten player. It's really not. And obviously, we're glad that he's doing well. We're glad that he has become a cornerstone of this offense. We're really happy that, he was one of the few transfers from the offseason that has really made a difference. But how much of a difference is he going to continue to make once Big Ten play rolls around, when he has to go up against guys who have a lot of size on him, when he has to go up against people of the same caliber shooting who are just a lot taller than him? He is good scoring coming off the bench. We saw that in this game, netted 19 points. It's just the size is a drastic concern. If this is somebody that you are consistently leaning on to produce offense, get good looks, and get buckets, I just don't know if that's something that you can do, not somebody of his stature. But we all knew that coming in to the season. It's just now that Big Ten play is just a couple days away, it's really becoming glaringly obvious that this team's going to struggle, and it's going to struggle a lot. The smaller backcourt is going to really affect this team coming into Big Ten play. The non-existent center play, I'm pretty sure almost all of us wish that Agbole or Byfall or any of them really developed into anything during the offseason. But again, we're once again heading into Big Ten play without a center. And now we arguably have even worse guard play. A couple other things to highlight from that game is um, a couple other things to highlight from that game is that Dylan Grant actually had a very good game for himself. He kind of broke out a little bit, recorded a double-double. He had 18 points and 10 rebounds. Definitely we're going to need everybody on this roster to step up. Him especially. Everybody on this roster is going to need to start playing at another level to even steal one game in the Big Ten. And that kind of brings us to our next point is this team going to win a Big Ten game? I think they might win one. I think they might win two. I really can't see any more than two. Even teams like Penn State, who we were expected to be on our level, look like that with their new freshmen. They have kind of turned a corner. Maybe not turning a corner in the sense that they're going to compete for a Big Ten title, but turning a corner in the sense that they're no longer going to be scraping for the bottom of the barrel of the conference. They're not going to be up there, but I think there's a clear talent gap between what Rutgers has and what Penn State has now. And as much as I want to be confident that we're going to win one game, because so many games in Big Ten play, I feel like you're going to at least steal one. Play above your talent, punch somebody in the mouth. Steal one game. Maybe if you get lucky, you steal two. But this is not a team that I see even winning 3 games in Big Ten play. I don't see them getting into double-digit wins. It's just not very feasible. And if they don't get into double-digit wins, if they don't at least reach 10, I don't think that Pikiell will be the coach of the men's basketball team next season. That is my opinion. I just don't know how you can return somebody that has less than double-digit wins in a program that has been steadily going downhill since their last tournament appearance in 2022. But, with that being said, the non-conference is done. Big Ten play begins. We arguably already went through our toughest stretch of the season with that Tennessee, Notre Dame, UNLV, Purdue, Michigan, Seton Hall stretch. So at least we won't be running through quite that gauntlet again. But either way, the skill of the opposing team will definitely be elevated from here. We'll see how everything shakes out. But from a Rutgers standpoint, we were hoping for a convincing win in this game. We really wanted, something to believe in heading into Big Ten play. Even if we beat Delaware State by 21 points, cover the spread, that would still leave me a little bit more confident that we can reach three wins in Big Ten play instead of 2. But since we weren't even able to cover the spread against Delaware State and shot extremely poorly from both the floor and from 3, it really highlights the fact that this team is nowhere near Big Ten caliber play. I don't even know if they would be a solid mid-major. I think they would probably be a lower tier mid-major now. But yeah, that game, just like the Central Connecticut State game, that game really put on full display how this is not a Big Ten caliber team. Unless something changes quickly, which, always can happen during a basketball season, this team is not going to be very fun to watch over the next couple of months. Now, I did hear in Pikiell's press conference that he wants to bring in that he'd be willing to bring in anybody that has eligibility, that they're always looking for people, that he'd rather have 30 something year olds with kids to feed or something like that. I'm not exactly sure verbatim what he said. I don't know if that was really meant to be a joke, but Rutgers has been going after a couple players from the NBA G League, but it is in the NCAA rules that they cannot have somebody that has previously signed an NBA contract on their roster. So, I mean, I don't think they're going to get a midseason addition. Um, I don't know if what Peichel said was intended to be humorous, but it does sound like they're always going to be looking for any player from anywhere that can better their roster, which you expect out of a school like Rutgers, which you expect out of a coaching staff like Rutgers. Always be looking for the next player that can better your roster. But honestly, I'm not, even if they were to land somebody like that, I'm not entirely convinced that they would be able to turn this team around. Okay. So we're going to take a little bit of a pivot over to the football side of things. Rutgers safeties coach Vic Hall is leaving the Banks to take a coaching job at Virginia Tech, working under James Franklin. I don't think that Rutgers fans are going to necessarily be too distraught about this departure. Now, we don't have any insider information on whether this was mutual, whether he was pushed out, whether he was, advised to leave. We don't know exactly what the thing was here. All that we do know is that he performed very poorly, or his safeties performed very poorly during his one season at Rutgers. For example, Jed Elad and Kaj Sanders, who were both the starting safeties, surrendered a total of 40 receptions for 669 yards and 7 touchdowns. Both were PFF disasters. Sanders was the third worst safety in the FBS, according to PFF. So, again, it's not necessarily people that we are going to miss having around. Um, it's not exactly a coaching hire that I think a coaching departure that Rutgers fans should be too distraught about. Change was absolutely needed because this disaster came, you know, one season into his tenure at Rutgers. Elad was a very good safety at the group of 5 level. Sanders was a promising safety coming up from his freshman year last season, and all of a sudden they look like they don't even know how to play football. They look like they don't know where to line up right. There was arguments before the snap, all these other problems. And I understand that Rutgers fans are very concerned with the lack of defensive coaching on the side of the ball right now, but this was a coaching staff change that I was expecting for a while. Personally, I was surprised that he lasted a little bit longer than David Rowe did. It's just when you compare the different positions on the team, the safeties were absolutely some of the worst of them. I don't want to not trying to point out exactly, um, what was the worst position, but they really were. They really struggled, especially throughout the beginning of the year. Elad did come on stronger at the end, but it was constant poor safety play. Um, and it was kind of in tune with Giano's complete shakeup of the defense this season, or this offseason, as he fired almost all of his defensive assistant coaches. Colin Farrell from the defensive line is gone. Linebackers coach, co-DC Zach Sparber is gone. David Rowe, not 100% sure if that one was mutual or not, but he has departed for the cornerback's job at University of Cincinnati. Rob Smith has now been fired as the defensive coordinator, and now Vic Hall is leaving. So even though, again, we don't have insider information on whether this was mutual, whether they were forced out, We don't have all of that. However, we do know that even with his departure, Rutgers was going to need a new safety coach anyway. This is not something, or with his departure, we're not losing like a golden ticket. It would be much more disastrous if Rutgers lost somebody like Kirk Shiraka, Daimir Shaw, just play coaches like that, proven talents. But on the other hand, these were not. Vic Hall was not a proven talent. He had done a couple years at Ball State as their defensive backs coach, but again, struggled last year. Not exactly a blue chip recruiter or anything like that. Yeah, I mean, I really can't state how much of, like I said, this is not something that we can confirm, but now that he is gone, now that he is moving on with his coaching career, it's not something that Rutgers fans should be too distraught about, especially with how poor the safety play was last season. Because in reality, whoever they get, 99% chance that they are going to be much better than what they had. It's going to be a much better hire than Vic Hall was, especially during his first year when his safeties not even were the worst in the Power Five. Sanders was the third worst in the entire FBS, including all the Group of Five schools, including all that. So, again, not somebody that is going to be missed. We don't exactly know if it was mutual or not. We don't know if Rutgers wanted to keep him. We don't know if he just got pulled away by Virginia Tech. It does sound like when the Virginia Tech offer and he was looking to accept it, Rutgers did not contest it at all, so they were ready to let him go. And with these stats, these numbers that he's put up, it's hard to really blame them, especially with how poor the safety play was. Taking our kind of like last pivot of the pod, we're going to talk a little bit about women's basketball. They did fall just short against number 24 Michigan State. Michigan State, obviously very good team, number 24. Rutgers was able to play them to a very close game after their one ranked game against an opponent. Sorry, their one game against a ranked opponent against number 12 Iowa. They got utterly dominated. In their game against Michigan State, they were actually able to hang in there until the fourth quarter, steal the lead a couple times, but ultimately Michigan State would hit buckets when they need to and steal a 70-64 victory over the Scarlet Knights, despite the fact that they were playing much stronger this game. It's just one of those things where the better team did come out on top. Rutgers did play a good game. It actually gives me a lot of hope going into Big Ten play, because if you're able to take a ranked team and go the distance with them, I don't care what they're ranked. If you can go the distance with a ranked team, you can absolutely steal some more games in Big Ten play, because women's basketball is weird. You have the haves and the have-nots. You either have the teams that's going to dominate everybody, or you have the teams that are just going to get completely blown off the floor. Now it seems like Rutgers might be a little bit more into the almost non-existent middle tier. Of course, there is a middle tier of teams that, can push around the lower schools but get pushed around by the upper schools, which is a big step up for this program that has been constantly one of the teams that just gets pushed around by everybody for the past couple of years. Faith Blackstone has emerged herself as the second offensive choice for Rutgers in the kind of like the back burner to Nene Njai, who is, I've been calling her Njai the Engine. She is she is really what makes this offense go. But what they have needed is somebody, not her, to score buckets and score them in droves. And that's what Blackstone has been doing over the last couple of games. She had that insane performance against Lafayette, almost single handedly propelled Rutgers to a win there. Um, Now she has 15 points against Michigan State, really did a lot to keep Rutgers in the game. And this was a finally like a full lineup game where everybody was contributing. Sure, NJ and Blackstone were able to net more points than the others, but this was a game where everybody was trying the not that they don't try their best, but this is the game where everybody was on, everybody was coordinated. It all worked like clockwork. Kayla Ivey scored 10 points. Imani Lester, 11 points, 5 rebounds. Perkins had a very good game on the defensive side of the ball, recording 7 rebounds and netting 6 points. Everybody in that starting lineup found a way to contribute, found a way to take this Michigan State team to the brink. Unfortunately, they were not able to get it done, but it really does give a lot of hope heading into Big Ten play. And especially with, like I said, with the women's basketball, there are the haves and the have-nots, and then there's almost like a non-existent middle tier. To be able to take that step into that non-existent middle tier from a team that has constantly been in lower bracket under Coach Washington, it's going to be exciting. It's going to be exciting to see. Now, of course, this game always does have the chance to just be, oh, it was a fluke game. Michigan State wasn't playing their best. They were playing sloppy, whatever have you. And Rutgers was able to take advantage and play a good game. Of course, stuff like that happens. But, especially with this, they do have a winning record coming out of conference play. They have beaten some solid mid majors like Rhode Island. I understand that they had a very stunning loss to Stony Brook in a game where they looked not really competitive, but this is, they were hanging with a decent Princeton team for most of the game before Princeton really started to pile it on at the end. They pulled off a win against Rhode Island. Every single time that these smaller teams looked like they were going to come up and bite them, somebody for Rutgers had a stellar performance to make sure that they push past said team that looked like they were going to come up and bite them, whether it be Lafayette, Siena. Many would argue that those games should not be as close as they were. They definitely should not have been as close as they were. But this is a team that's going to play hard and make you earn it. And with the return of Lauren Swan, hopefully coming in the next, I don't really have a timetable, but with hopefully her full return from injury coming in the next couple of games, they'll be able to take an even higher step up and really start to compete with the class of the conference. Maybe not pull off a ranked win, but earn a decent slot in the women's tournament for the Big Ten, because as you guys remember, the men's tournament has every team from the Big Ten compete in it, while the women's tournament only has the top 15 teams. This game makes me a lot more confident that Rutgers will find itself in the top 15 teams. Actually, it makes me confident to the point where, maybe instead of being last team in at like 15, 14, they might, be in by a couple games, find themselves 12, 11, maybe 10 around there. But, it all remains to be seen. This absolutely does have the chance of being a fluke. Hopefully it's not, but we will have to see, as, we're going to be looking for things to root for as Rutgers fans, with a seemingly cold winter coming to Jersey Mike's Arena in terms of the men's side of things. But that pretty much does it for everything that we have here today. Thank you guys so much for tuning into another episode with us. Hopefully Arnav will be back next time. Definitely hoping that he feels better. Uh, on your and again, I understand was probably not, the most perfect sounding podcast, but we had to take an emergency pivot last minute. Um, yeah, thank you guys so much for tuning in with us. Give us 5 stars on Spotify, Apple Podcast. Subscribe to our YouTube. Give us a like. It takes 2 seconds on you guys, but it really does help us out and help us grow the pod. If you know a Rutgers fan in your life that wants to hear more Rutgers content, recommend our pod. It really does help us out. But like I said, we're going to be signing off here today. Thank you guys so much for watching. And always remember that the bells must ring.